Good morning. This is Dr. Bill White again with the American Orthodontic Society. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about little aids to doing orthodontics, things that you might use. And some of you already know most of them, and others will help some if you look at them and think you can use them. Go ahead. I've tried most of these. Some of them we've stopped using over the period of time, but a lot of them we still use. So anyway, let's get back into it here. There'll just be different things. And one thing that I used, really used for a long time, was these little brass clips. You could get them at a store they call Radio Shack, but you could still buy these, I think. I'm not absolutely sure about that, but they made the nicest little bracket holders or things to carry the brackets to the patient. They came like this with these tail end pieces sticking down like that, which didn't help anything, but we could take pliers and flatten these out back in here. We just flattened them now where they didn't poke. And then when you close this together, you move this down toward that, and it opens these deals up like this. Now, we had brackets, that had edge, so we would take this and bend about this much down, like that. And then this would go up this way. And now, when you mash this part together back here, this would separate and you could put your bracket in here. Just have this go down. And these things were just almost free. In other words, they didn't cost much at all to use. And so we could make a whole slew of them, and we put them on we'd take a little strip of magnetic material that you can buy in strips and just lay these things on them like that with the brackets that we're going to use, the centrals, the laterals, and the cuspids, and the bicuspids, and on out. And we had bands on the molars to start with. So we would position these brackets by where the band, I had them drop the brackets on the bands about 3/4 of a millimeter down, so that, these had ears on them too. But we didn't want the upper tooth to come in and hit this. Well, let's see, the upper one would come here somewhere and go up and down, and we didn't want it hitting these brackets, so we had the manufacturer lower these 3/4 of a millimeter lower than they normally were, and then we would gut from the bicuspid against the molar. Then we would lower it down to where it matched this and kept the cuspids of the teeth lined up straight as we put the bands on there, or put the bands and then put the brackets on the case. So let me show you how we bent those things. We took this plier was a real heavy, this is tool steel here, and it goes out to 1/4 of a millimeter, and boy, it's small at the end. And we had these made up specially, and they met, the 2/4 of a millimeter out here, and they go back kind of like that, And we take this, put it in there, it's real strong, and this metal is real good, and you can mash this down flat right there so that this didn't run into the bottom. This is, of course, where the hooked electrical cord to that in the original thing. Let me go on now to something else. Alright, you mash them down so you can open this up. And now we'll take this part of it and turn it down like that. And now you can put your bracket, the deals of your bracket would fit right in here and close on it. And you could hold that bracket, it wouldn't slip out of there at all. You put your sealant on the tooth and then put your bonding agent on the bracket from that. Now let's see if we take it, put a little round deal on there and turn it up. And take that one, turn it down. And now we'll take that and stick this on the bracket. It doesn't matter whether it's a double bracket or just a single bracket. Now this is the one we use, and it's got a 018 slot on it, and we usually use 17, that's not a 17, 2, 5 arch wire. Otherwise they'd be 25 thousandths in this direction, 17,000 in this, and the arch wire that we would fit into this bracket. Now you can put your brackets on those things, put whatever you want on them, lay them down on this little piece of magnetic strip. It kind of goes in a refrigerator door, something of that nature. And there, if you had something else like that, you could be on one side of it or the other. That's porcelain brackets. It fits them also. And now here is the bracket that you can see. This is not a real good picture, but here is the tooth. In other words, this is the central tooth, and we've got this little thing going out and turned down here. This one goes out here and turns up. We open it up. We put it on that tooth where we feel like it ought to go, and you can put it on there, and then you mash this back part, and these teeth will come out of there, and you can move it away from it without molesting the bracket where you pressed it against the tooth. It would stay right there. If you wanted to adjust it a little more, you would come in with say a Explorer, and you'd have something like that. And we'd put the Explorer side of it in here, and you could move this bracket around in this fashion, you see, and push it up against. Then you could take the other end, the part of the Explorer, and take off any excess you wanted to remove. Now we'd already put sealant all over this too. So if the person doesn't brush good up in this area, it'll be a long time before the acid or the food structure would get in close to the band, close to the bracket rather, and decalcify the food. Now somebody talked about the white stain. That isn't white stain. If you took a piece of this enamel and cut out in it, this eats down into the enamel, and you can't restore that color to that at all. And the only thing, you can take it out and put a filling in it if you want to, but the white stain stays with the tooth from then on. This is what we do to try to keep away from having this decalcification around the neck of the bracket like this. We used to have, when we had bands on teeth across here, we'd have decalcification strips across the top and below the bottom of the band. Now you've got little circles around there. And when we let me erase this. And when we had brackets that had these wings on them like that, and the bracket was up in this part, and you couldn't get a brush under there good, and so it would decalcify, and you'd have these little stained areas under that. So I quit using this, but after we've got sealants real good, this is an excellent bracket, really. You want to rotate with it, you just stick something under the triangular shaped thumb under there and bend it up. This is soft metal, and your arch wire be coming through here, and you bend it up and push that arch wire, and it'll make the tooth rotate whatever way you want to rotate it by just elevating that little wing or depressing the wing on these brackets. So I recommend brackets with those wings. They're very good, and we got to where we pretty well didn't need that, so we just used a single bracket. Let's go on and see some other things here. All right, when you got around to the bicuspid teeth around the side of the mouth, you couldn't pull the cheek back far enough, so we would take these things right here and grab them with a plier, and this is soft metal, and you could take a piece like this and grab it and bend it and make it look like this, or you could go all the way around like this right here. You can just bend it around here, keep it flat. Now bend it over from the side right there, and you can catch the bracket on the side to place it on a bicuspid cuspids and some of those teeth like that. The metal is amazing. You can just catch it, and it's pretty soft, copper-like metal, and you bend it around like that, and now bend the tops down, the inner part of it down where you can grab it with a bracket. Okay, so here we would take a bracket, and this is a place for bicuspid and anything on the side of the mouth and getting in beside there. And so these things would go around like that, and then they would be bent down. If you looked at them from the front, you could catch the bracket right in here. This is already bent down. I don't know whether I've got a picture of one bent like that. Well, yes, we do. So this goes around the corner, bends it down, and bends this down. Now the beauty of it, when you pick this thing up, you put one finger on this side and another finger on the other side like this, and you can take a toothpick with the bonding material and rub it on this and push it down into these little crevices where it's really in there good, and you won't lose the bracket. The bracket can't get out of there. You got your finger on this side and one finger on the other side like that, and now put the toothpick with the material and now stick that onto the tooth. So this is good stuff, and if you want to get these, I don't know where you live or anything where you can find them, but you can. We used to buy them by the thousands, and we'd fix them up like this, and we would, at courses and everything, would pass these out, and people would use them, and then they could get them wherever they live. They could find them. There's a store called Radio Shack, but it's out of business now, I guess. And people thought we were smoking marijuana with a cigarette butt in that thing. They thought that was what we were using these for, and it was not putting marijuana cigarettes in there for certain. And as far as I know, we didn't have anybody that was addicted to it. All right, let's go on. Now there we're coming around the mouth, you see. This is a molar here, and here's a bicuspid would be coming into this part. And we come around the cheek and put the bracket where it needs to be. And the beauty of it is you can push it, you can mess with it, you can put stuff on it. You're not going to drop it. And if you did, you keep them on a magnetic strip in the order that you want. And you just pick one up, and usually if it was a light cured bonding material, the ladies would put the stuff on the bracket before we even started. And I could put the brackets on a set of teeth in a matter of just a few minutes, and go back and check them. I got to where you've done it so many times you could get them almost exactly right. In other words, the distance from here to the bracket, where the center of the tooth was, and you'd have your arch wire deal going here. If you had a tooth that was sticking down longer, well, you just drop the bracket a little bit, and then that'll pick it up and make it more the direction of the length of the other teeth in the mouth. So this is worth doing if you haven't done it. Now you can go and buy ready-made deals for doing this, but I really don't think they worked quite as well as these little copper things that cost almost nothing, and we would buy them and put them on. Now here is a strip that came out of a refrigerator door, or you could buy a little strip of magnets and put them in, and you got your bicuspids back here, you got your cuspids here, laterals, central, lateral there. And they're laying there in front of you, and somebody can come in and put this, if it's light cured, you can put this on there to start with. If it's something you got to take it out and put it on and get it on there before it sets up, excuse me, then you would need to pick one up with your fingers. You're not going to drop the thing because it's hooked on. Then you get your fingers right on the end of that thing, and you press it together, and that bracket can't get out of there. And you can mash it and work the bonding material down into this little base of the bracket right there. Then you get it over this end, take it, put it on the tooth, straighten it up with an Explorer, remove a little bit of the excess if you want to, get it away and go back to the next one. You didn't get them mixed up. You knew this was a bicuspid, a cuspid, and everything was lined up there for you. And you could have this made up in advance, you see, if you put this, and you come in here and pick this up and put the bonding material on each one. And this saves you a lot of time. Back when I quit doing this, I could bracket a case in just a few minutes time. We would have the case bracketed and ready. The girls did all that. I say girls, these were ladies that worked for us, just real fine people, and they were talented in this type of work. And they would get the case ready for you to do, and you could do it in just a few minutes. You've got to have a lot of good, well-trained people if you're going to make orthodontics pay for itself and everything, because there's so much detailed work that the assistants can do. I had two of my really good, talented ladies, and I sent them to hygiene school. And so we had these hygienists there, two of them all the time too, and they knew the orthodontics, and they bit arch wires. They could beat most anybody bending arch wires. I mean, they did this all the time. and they taught the other girls, and somebody would, you'd have one lady that was really good at something, would train another lady at the same time. And I operated at one time 6 or 7 chairs, and we turned out darn good orthodontics. I mean, we didn't take anything. And if somebody come in with something broken, it didn't ruin the day. We just got them in there and worked them into the group. So anyway, let's get back here to this again. Now, you can come in. Now here's the way we would set it up. This is toothpicks, what we're going to take the bonding material and put on the tips of these brackets. Or you can pick one up, pick a toothpick, get the bonding material, put it on there. I can have the whole set of brackets lined up on the case and do that whole case in just a few minutes. And that to me was a lot better than putting them on a model and making them impression of it, you know, out of some kind of flexible material and putting them on all at once. I never was sure about it. When I did the individuals, I could look at it, and I got to where I could put that bracket almost exactly where it needed to go and move on to the next one. You just do it so many times and you know where the bracket goes. Now let's I'll erase that. And here's somebody that they come in. This is a case we are going to work on. Before we bracket, well, this is a mixed dentition case. I don't know exactly why I'm showing it, but we separated here, and this is a permanent molar, and a deciduous molar right here. Same thing, deciduous, and this is permanent back here at the back, here. And that's the first bicuspid, the lateral, central, lateral, and the cuspid coming in there, and there's the bicuspid. Now this is obviously, you're either going to have to take something out or you're going to have to expand this thing. So we found ways of expanding without making them too big. If we just took this side and pushed it out and moved this over here, it would make some more room in here. And if they insisted, their smile would just be broader in there. But now if you get too big a tooth, you can't stick it in there without making the face bad. You can push everything to the back and then take out the wisdom teeth. And all these guys running around saying, let me see, I've got my messed up here. Okay, we got it back again. I don't know what's happened back then, but this is the case. It's just in the mixed dentition, and we may be planning to start this case and wanted to deal with it. Now, this second bicuspid doesn't need all this space that's underneath here. Let me go back here now. It doesn't need all that space, so sometimes we would trim that tooth, just trim it off. I need to catch my little arrow going. In other words, we could take some of this tooth off and you still have enough for this bicuspid in here, and that would let this tooth go back, bring the cuspid into there, and the lateral left, turn it around in that fashion. All right. We put separators in there. That's the bottom arch, and you can see it's just on the crowded side, a few millimeters of crowding, not bad. This is laid out now like we're going to put bands on this, and we used advertising Armco right here. We used their bands, and we'd have some ladies picked out the bands and put them on. This is back before we had have gloves on, they would pick out the bands, and they got so used to it, they could pick out just about exactly what you need. And we use this little deal on the handle with a, to bite down on the band. Now I try to get the bracket 3/4 of a millimeter lower on the tooth so that the upper cusp didn't touch that. And we push it down. And if you had to try 2 or 3 bands in, you'll take the 2 or 3 that you didn't use, put them over and sterilize those brackets and bring them back to put them in the box. They've got the number on them and everything. Some of these are a lot of expense. You just don't throw them away because you tried them in the mouth. All right, we go to so we got the band on there like we wanted it, and now we take an amalgam plugger and kind of crimp the band around it, and I put a lingual button on every lower band. When that one comes in, we put a lingual button so that we could pull the elastics that way or pull up with this elastic to move the jaw one way or the other. You see, I had this lingual button on here to grab on. I just had them put on to start with, and that's the way we kept them. Now, we had a little thing that heated wax, and this thing stayed on. This little pot right here, about as big as a thimble, we put wax in there, this beeswax. And you take the bracket and dip the bracket on the band in there, but not let the wax get on the inside. And then we'd cover this with wax so that we didn't get any cement into the bracket itself or around this little lingual button we had on there. Now you've waxed all these up and they're ready. And back when we used regular cement, we had slabs of nylon, and we would freeze these, and we would put the cement and powder and mix it on this frozen slab, and it would stay soft during the time you were working on it. But when you got ready to go, you put it in the mouth and push it down and trim it around, and by that time it was set up again over here. So we fill the band or put a lot of cement in. You see the wax on the bracket, and this is a cleat on the upper, and it's got wax over it. But don't let the wax flow inside the band for sure. If you do, you got to burn it out. You can't hardly scrape it out. It won't cement on the tooth good. So anyway, we put it in like that, and now we took, I guess we started wearing gloves. We used to band 2 or 3, maybe 4 cases a day, and we had the ends of my fingers were like, they were just big calluses. They'd be cut. You put the glove and you're mashing this down. Now you put your finger on top of the band with the cement in there, and you go in, and now as you work the band down, you look and you get cement coming down at the bottom of the band, and you get it in place. Then you can finish it, push it again, but you want to make sure that the whole inside of that band is covered with cement. So here we band these cases, this case up, and now we'll start doing the other. This is called mixed dentition. If these teeth were not too, we wouldn't have to expand it too much. A lot of times I would just slice this tooth off right here and do a pulpotomy in here, and then I'd have room for this bicuspid to slide right up to here, And now there'd be room for this cuspid and the lateral, or we could expand the case to some extent. I like that. So there are the bands in place in the case on the lower, and this was the material. Now we're going to put the brackets on after we've got the bands there. The brackets are. We're going to put them in. This is etching material right here. We go around and etch the teeth. Then we would have later we'd have some sealant material. I think this is a bonding material. But we go around and seal the etched tooth. Then we bonded the bracket to the, in other words, if you had a tooth in there, let me just erase. Well, let's go ahead. Here, just erase. If I took the surface of this tooth, say this is a central tooth, something like that, and we etch this, we would etch a lot of it in here, see, and wash it off and clean it real good, and then we would paint the sealant on there with a little brush. Paint that sealant on there and cure it. If it's light cured sealant, okay. Sealants got real good and they would stay on the teeth. Now the brush could get to this part and your bracket base would be down here, and your brush could probably get up fairly close here, and where the brush didn't get, the sealant lasted, and where the brush got to, it would wear the sealant out, and but the tooth would be brushed. And so that's the beauty of the sealant. And you bond the bracket to the sealant, and that's where it comes in. And that helps, that just did away with almost all of our decalcification problems that you had if you had a person that wanted to brush at all. I've had a few cases that just flat would not brush their teeth. I brought their mother in and showed her, and then had the kid back more often, have them brush when they got there. And then when I took, he just wouldn't do it. And the teeth were beginning to decalcify around this area up here and down here. And I said, we just got to take the brackets off. I don't want to mess it up any further. I don't want to leave this in there. So we took them off, and the kid had decalcification. And the daddy came in then, and he raised Cain with me. He said, I knew I was professional, and I should have seen that. I couldn't make that kid do it. I told his mother, and she couldn't make it. So the next, after that, I got mom and dad and the patient in there, and I told them all, if you don't brush this, it's going to decay, and we're going to take it off, and you'll have to do the filling of the teeth. So get the monkey off your back. There's some people that absolutely will not brush their teeth, and they're going to rot out anyway when you get through, because they won't do it when you get away. So I'm going to close that out. That's fussing at you enough. Okay, there we go. We're going to clean the teeth off first. We take pumice and the deal, and go in there and pumice it, wash it good, and then we put the sealant on the teeth. I don't have the sealant showing there, but that's the way we're going to seat that. And then here are the teeth when we're ready to go with it, and that's the bonding material over there. And Rely Bond primer, that's a primer, but boy, that relies. You put that stuff on there, it bonded like mad. And there we're going, painting the sealant on the back of the brackets, and now we're putting the etch on the tooth. and we'll wash that off, clean it off, and the tooth will have an etched surface in there. Then we're going to come back now and harden the sealant, and then we put the brackets on the tooth, bonded onto the sealant itself. And you've got pictures of this. This looks like she's got a little decalcification before we started, you see, right in the tops of these teeth. Maybe so. Now we're just hoping to treat her with fluoride and stuff, but you do the fluoride treatment after you finish doing it, so you have a hard time etching them. And these people from West Texas that had maybe 10 times the amount of fluoride they needed, or maybe more than that, their teeth just didn't, you couldn't hardly bond the bracket to them sometimes. All right, this is what we call, well, it was a Wildcat Wire. This is a twisted wire that we had before, say, Night Dog came along in about an 016 Night Dog. You could bend too, but you got to bend the heck out of it. Now this stuff, you can bend it and put it in. It's very flexible, and you could do a whole host of things to a set of teeth with this little flexible wire. Then we had to come on top of that. If you wanted to expand the arch, we put the Big Daddy, we knew how to do that. And we put it right on top of this. So it'd have this wire right here will do about, I think I counted up one time, about 12 different things that you can do with this type of wire. And one of them you can't do is expand the arch. You can't make it, you can't, well, I say that because if you put spring between these parts in here, it'll just a bit bigger anyway, and it'll have more torque to it. But that's what we used for several years, and this is a multi-strand twisted arch wire, and that's how it's constructed. And when we went to bend an arch wire in it, we would take a straight piece of it, then we'd come up and make this little dent, and then we'd have this. We'd push this in the motor and let the patient hold it in place and just double it back. You'd come over here and double this back, push it up against the tooth, mark it where you want to cut it, and then you cut it. And you can also come in and make a loop in it, and then you take it off. So you make these just real quick without a wax pattern or anything, just by the patient holding them in place. I'll just let the patient put their fingers up there and hold it in place while we bent that wire. Okay, now let me, and you do the same thing with a night-tie wire. And if I wanted to expand the arch, I'd put it in, I'd leave a lot of space out here, but when I got it all banded, that part that was like this, maybe it would look like this. And it would expand the whole arch. It expands the whole arch while it rotates every tooth you tie it to. It levels them from upper to lower to line them up in that respect. It just does a number of things for you. And so learn how to do a little flexible wire. But for all people that learn how to really do the orthodontics and finish out these adults like they should be done. So here we've shown you this arch wire, and I don't think I've got one for the other. Now this is usually the little plier that we did this. I've got left a lot of my pliers back. This is a little 3-prong plier right here that you can see, and you can bend stuff with it. This is the top now. If you want to bend and have a square part on one part, and we made up some that was square all the way around like that we used to bend the wires with. Okay. I know I've taken a long time. This is 40 minutes we've been in here. But it just takes time. When you get through, if you want to bend something, you want to cut it, you stick your wire in here and mash that together and it'll cut it just like everything. This is two steel right here. That's hard steel. And this part will last and last and last. If you just get regular steel, this will bend and change. But you buy them with two steel added to it. They're a lot more expensive. Pliers were, even back then, it was $65, $75, and $100 a piece for some of them. Now we bend the little U in the wire like that, and now we stick that into the tube. This will be a tube. If you've converted it, you'll have to tie it in. So we put the wire in there, run it out, and the patient holds the wire in place, and we come around over here and we mark this where we're going to cut it, and then we make another U, and we use up part of the cut part, and maybe this wire is run way on back like that, and we make another U in it, and when we have this wire be out in front, but when we push it back into the bracket, it would close this little loop right here up, and this wire is pushing gently on the teeth all the time. This one will lower this down and raise this up, line all the teeth up, and you just do a lot of things with that little wire. But you couldn't widen this arch out. So we had the answer to that. We put an old 3/6 or something like that back in here, and that's the story of the Big Daddy arch wire, and it'll widen anything living. I have never found one you couldn't widen out. I don't care how old they are, and I don't care who got taught that you couldn't do this or couldn't do that. You can do it, I tell you. You can widen anything with them. Now we marked that one where I wanted to bend it, so we got to bend it, and we left the tail end of the wire. If you go back here, let me see that. You see, we have a lot of the wire going back here. We just bent it down, marked it where I want the loop to be. So I put the loop there, and then when I put it in, it'll condense the loop and expand the arch wire. And when you expand an arch wire, you get positive torque in there. So you're torquing the teeth on there with a flexible, round, or twisted wire that's very lightly covered. Now, we use these single brackets, so we got a big inter-bracket space in here. Now, if you got double brackets on them, like that, you've only got about maybe 2/3 as big as this is, but we have a bigger bracket space. So I can put more torque in between this than you can between the space between double brackets. And you just learn how to rotate them with that. And now we'll put this in the arch. So we push it back in here on both sides, and this is the wire goes here, that goes down and up, over here. And we have the wires out front, so we're going to push it back into the brackets and set it, and in between each tooth will have a little slack like that. But when you get it in there, it will close those loops a great deal. Now, I don't really need to expand this case, but this is just to show you this is a typodont, what you can do with them. Now, alright, we take it and I put the two centrals together, and now I'm going to come back. If I did not want to expand one side, I would line it up completely and then squeeze the other side in. I know it will slide around eventually, but it'll tend to expand over here and not over here. Now this one's going to expand all the way around, and it's going to torque all those teeth. It's going to rotate, or try to rotate every tooth in the arch in there, and try to level them from tooth to tooth and expand it. If you've got a crowded out tooth, we'd say we had a tooth that was crowded here, we'd put some spring on the tooth. You can take spring and wind it onto your arch wire and cut it where you want it. Squeeze that spring in there, it'll expand in one spot, and the expansion where you want it. Or if you had two spots you wanted to, you would expand. Of course, the whole arch wire is expanding, and while it's expanding, your expansion is being located where you needed it in a tooth, so you put the spring in here. Now you can't put too much on this flexible wire, or the spring will just kind of bulge out on the side like that. But you can expand with Wildcat Wire in your mouth. And so there we are, and they're tied in, and now the little U's are closed up, and there's no expansion now between this. And I crown all those, but as this pushes this motor, it'll push this and close this together, see? So the motor is being pushed this way, and these teeth are going this way. And this opens that up, and the wire slides through there, and you'll have expansion all the way around. And you do this one day, and you get to come back in just 2 or 3 weeks, and you can go and you can line all the teeth up, and pretty soon you get an 018 round arch in there, and then you can go to the rectangular wire to do the torquing and everything. Though this one torqued a little bit, but just positive torque. Okay, there's lined up like that. So here is the, now if I have to do a bend back here, this would be another motor would be back in here, you see. And if I have to do a bend, I've got to convert this slot or this tube to a bracket slot, and then I can bend the wire back in that one and make it, put it in there. And I push this down and tie it and cut that off and tuck it down under where you get to it. And this, we'll put a O-ring or whatever on there. You can tie it with metal if you want to. And if you squeeze it up, this will come back like such and come up this way. And you'll have that much trying to enlarge this, also pushing this back. You always have the same force going one way, you'll have it going the other direction too. And it'll open a space in there. So these are old tried and true methods of moving the teeth around. Now okay, that's what we did here. I was just showing when I tie those at the front, then it did this to this arch wire. It was somewhere like this. So we've got about that much expansion going on in the case all the way around like that. Now, if I had a tooth that was crowded out here, I put a spring in here. And then I did and this is a 016 night tie, I think. You have to bend the heck out of it to get it to stay bent. And then put this spring in here. And so this is opening up this gap. And we'll get that tooth in, then we have to parallel the roots and all that. And we want to come back and band those second molars of that nature right there. And there's the night eye. Say we have a crowded tooth here and a crowded tooth over here. So we put a couple of springs inside the arch wires to open those up. And there it is from that angle. You can take the spring on a spool and just twist it and twist it and twist it, and you can twist that spring, unwrap, go in and leave one side unwrapped, so you twist the spring on there and you go on and twist it back here. And now you push it up and push the wire down and put your stop on it, so your spring is condensed in this portion of the wire right there. I know there's a lot of you that this is all simple and you know it, so you don't have to watch this one. You can go look at something else in there. Now, we buy the wire that's absolutely straight. I get rectangular wire. I could get a 14-inch stick of rectangular wire and it'll make 2 arch wires. If I want to put torque in that wire, I have a torquing turret here, and it expands 0, 7, 10, 13, and 16 degrees. In other words, but you got to have it straight when you twist it down. And you twist it down and it actually rolls that wire and bends it in that shape. It torques it. Then you take the torque out, you make your arch form and everything, and then you take the torque out, except where, say, from lateral to lateral, and your cuspids don't have any, and then maybe your posterior teeth, you might want to put extra torque in them. So sometimes that's have a buckle root torque in there. So here we put that wire in that slot, push it down in there. And if the wire is smaller than the slot, these are 0.18 slots in this deal. 18 thousandths, 25 thousandths deep. And we put a piece of wire in there, and you hold one side of this and bring this thing around like this. Writing, when you bring it around that way, and it forces that wire down into that slot, and you come back and go around the other way. Let me see if I've got something that shows that. Let me go back and erase this. All right, there we are. We're taking the wire, it's in there, and we go around and we keep it in that slot. I don't know what we've got to here, but the wire comes out, it'll have a certain amount of torque in it. I don't know whether you see this or not, but I take the tail end of the wire sometimes and bend it up, and then I may want to put a progressive torque in the tail of that wire, and so I can bend it around like that. Didn't know that wire's not made for this. You have to twist it. Now that's not a good wire for doing it, but I can twist it so the wire goes like that, and you have more torque back at the back and less. You come up to the cuspid and you don't have any. And then at the anterior teeth out here, you would say whatever you wanted to add some torque to the case, you could do it in the anterior part. It's hard for me to give a hands-on thing here over the air. All right, this goes back to our little deals. I hold the deals on there. So I think this was all I had planned to do, and it's been good being with you. And I hope you take this. Those of you that haven't learned these basic things in there, maybe this is what it's for. This is just things that help you do orthodontics. And thank you for watching, and join our group. We have a regular channel, and we have a nearly there's way over 4,000 subscribers, and that's all around the world. And I hope to God I'm teaching you the things that are right to do the good, solid orthodontics that's going to hold up on people. And if you really get in there and study these things, you can learn orthodontics. And I hope that you do. And I'm going to sign off now. And we've just gone through Thanksgiving here, and I'm grateful to have you as as people in our group. And I hope that we can stay with you and continue to do this. I want to see good orthodontics done everywhere, whatever country you're in. So I'm going to say goodbye, and see you next time.